Hi, I'm Rachel from Skulls Satin. Today we will be sewing the Bea Boxy top step by step. It's a cute little boxy top that's easy to wear. It has a flutter sleeve. You can either make a crop length, which is about 2 inches below your natural waist, or a longer top which hits about the high hip. This pattern is for woven fabrics only. It works really well with linen, lightweight cotton. I prefer to use upcycled fabrics like vintage tablecloths, but you do you, use whatever works. So let's get started. I've printed out the pattern on my home printer and taped all the pages together. This creates my whole pattern. I'm using size medium, so I've cut along the blue line, which is medium. I'm using a vintage tablecloth for my pattern, so I folded that in half and then placed the pattern pieces on the fold. Here is my front and back pattern pieces cut out, and I have also marked my side notches from the pattern to the sides of each piece. This pattern calls for serged edges. If you don't have a serger, you can use a zigzag stitch on your home machine, or most have an overlock stitch. To finish the edges with a zigzag, you just zigzag right over the edge of your fabric, and this will prevent any edges from fraying. First, we will put the front and back pieces right sides together, matching the shoulder seams, and we will pin along the shoulder seam. Now we will sew the shoulder seam, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and end of every seam. We will serge this seam together. If you don't have a serger, you can zigzag this step. Now we will press this seam open. So open up the top and push the seam allowance towards the back of the top and press. Now we want to serge the raw edges of the whole side of the garment. So open it out flat, starting at the bottom of the front, serge all along the edge, around the sleeve hem and down to the back. For the side seam, with right sides together, pin at the notch and down to the hem. Now sew the seam, making sure to backstitch at the hem and the side notch. Press the side seam open. To hem the sleeve, we are going to turn our top right side out and then turn up the sleeve hem 3/8 of an inch and press all the way around. To hem the sleeve, first we will reinforce the opening. So down 3/8 of an inch from the armhole, we will stitch back and forth a few times. At the end, put your needle down, lift the presser foot and pivot. Then continue to sew around the whole sleeve edge. This makes your sleeve hem. And we're just going to press the finished sleeve hem once it's sewn, just to give it a nice edge. Measure the neckline with a flexible measuring tape. Once you have the number of the neckline measurement, add 1/2 inch and cut a piece of bias tape that length. If you're using store-bought single fold, this is what it looks like. If you're using homemade bias tape, this is a 1-inch strip with the bottom pressed up. And you'll just unfold the edges before sewing them together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Next, we will divide the bias tape into quarters, the center front, center back, and side seams. Place a pin at these marks. I'm also going to place a pin at my center front and center back of the neckline on my top. Then I will lay my bias tape over top of the neckline with the right sides together, matching those 4 pinpoints: the center front, the side seams or shoulder seams, and the center back. And we will pin all the way around the neckline. Now we will sew the bias tape onto the neckline around the whole neckline with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we will clip the neckline, so lay it out flat on a hard surface, being sure to just very carefully clip the seam allowance, not too close to the stitching. Now we will press all of that seam allowance towards the bias tape. So lay it flat on your ironing board, push the seam allowance towards the bias tape and press. To understitch, we are going to make sure all of that seam allowance is getting caught on the bias tape, and we are stitching from the right side of the bias tape really close to that neckline edge all the way around the neckline. Now we will fold that bias tape. Make sure you put the original fold back up, and you're just going to fold it to the inside of the neckline and pin all the way around. Sew the bias tape down close to the edge on the inside of the top all the way around the neckline. And once you're done sewing, give that neckline one final press. For the hem, we're going to press up the bottom edge 3/8 of an inch all the way around the whole top. We will repeat that, pressing up another 3/8 and ironing all the way around. So the hem starting at one side seam all the way around close to the edge of the fold. And that's it. Congratulations, you're done your Bea Boxy top. Be sure to tag me with your creations. I'd love to see them. Thanks so much for sewing with me, and let me know if you have any questions.